Hello, Weekend Warriors. Welcome to another Saturday night stream on the Weekend Dojo with your hosts, Ace Red and
El Chizo Reviews. Welcome back, everybody.
All right. So tonight our theme is the Marvel Cinematic Universe. And I think what we'll start off with before reaching our way down to the hype of the month, Avengers Infinity War, we will start from all the way back to 2008 with Iron Man. El Chizo, take it away.
Okay, so Iron Man arguably could be is what kicked off the whole Marvel Cinematic Universe. Casting Robert Downey Jr. as the enigmatic Tony Stark was a brilliant choice.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see. I think it was just. It wasn't the way they wrote it made it so that it wasn't even obvious they were building a cinematic universe.
Mm-hmm. Now, I have a question. That post-credit scene, did they actually announce that there would be an end credit scene during promoting the movie?
No. They were, at that point, end credit scenes were slim. They had them.
Okay.
I mean, it was mostly Disney's thing because they had Pirates of the Caribbean.
Welcome, Entertainment Warehouse and Christian Torres. All right, back to what you're saying.
I mean, Pirates of the Caribbean was doing it. I think
that Marvel is right. Wait, I can't remember though. I thought, remember Dead Man's Chest in 2006. What was the post-credit scene? I know the ending was Barbossa coming down.
I think that was them leading into the next season anyway. So,
but wait, the post-credit scene was when what's his name? The British guy who got lost at sea in the hurricane looking for Sparrow. He comes in with Davy Jones' Hart, right?
Oh yeah.
That was the post-credit scene. In Norrington.
So, Norrington, that's right.
So I think some people are aware that there might be a post-credit scene at the end of the movie. So some people stayed back, and then word spread, so people went and saw it again and stayed after the credits.
Yeah, so Iron Man was definitely a solid start to the MCU.
Mm-hmm.
I guess after that it was really Hulk.
Right.
That kind of continued that tradition. What other Marvel movies were out at the time?
Oh, you mean that were new in that year?
Yeah.
That were already out at that time.
No, that were new in that year.
It was Hulk and Iron Man were the two movies of that year.
Okay, so yeah, so Hulk, you had to wait until the very end, and then they tied it in to the whole Avengers initiative, and then we started getting
a Marvel one-shot that was actually attached to the Avengers DVD connects that post-credit scene, because the one-shot was called The Consultant, and basically how it worked was what it was doing was Coulson was meeting up with Agent Sitwell at a diner, which was shown in which was in the area where Thor took place, and they're talking about escorting Abomination to, or how they call him, Blonsky, to a secure facility in S.H.I.E.L.D. They're trying to convince Ross to leave him into S.H.I.E.L.D.'s custody. And then Coulson says, I've sent in the consultant. And turns out the consultant was Tony Stark, and how what they were describing him as annoying, rich, and very wise talking, or something like that. So that it turns out the person they sent in to talk to Ross to convince him to leave Abomination over to Shield's custody was Stark.
And simultaneously, he was probably pushing the Avengers Initiative.
Yeah. But originally it was to get all their dangers, the Blonsky, who was at the time a really, really dangerous villain, into Shield custody.
And that was very closely followed by Iron Man 2, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
Then there was Iron Man 2, I believe you could take it or leave it.
Question, are we going to go through this before we answer comments, or are we going to go through it as we're talking?
Let's go through this before we answer comments.
Okay. All right, guys. Stay for the stream. Right now we're talking about the Marvel Cinematic Universe. We will answer all your questions after the final discussion. So just listen in, add comments, and we will get to them as soon as we can, though.
Yep. I did not see Iron Man 3.
Oh, we'll get to that soon. I'll explain it, though.
Go ahead.
After so we've already talked about pretty much how Incredible Hulk and Iron Man connect to the MCU. Let's go into Iron Man 2.
Yes. Tony's Iron Man weapon, which, okay, it's a weapon. Okay, let's not mince words, Tony. You can't convince us otherwise. You put goddamn missiles in the thing. It's a weapon.
Mm-hmm.
His designs get stolen and recreated. Well, they aren't stolen. The designs for the original arc reactor are recreated by someone who is probably just as brilliant as Tony, mm-hmm. and creates the Titanium Man suit.
Mm-hmm.
And sells all of his design. Well, gets hired by Tony's rival.
What's his name again? Adrian. It's Hammer. Justin Hammer.
Justin Hammer. Yeah. Sells him robots and whatnot.
Mm-hmm. And then he gets a Russian guy who wants revenge on Stark to kill Tony Stark for him.
Yep.
Only to ultimately be hijacked by the one man he hired.
Yep, and even turned one of the Iron Man suits into War Machine.
Yep. Long story short, good guys win again. And the ending, Tony Stark is deleted from the Avengers Initiative by Fury for being narcissistic and not playing well with others.
Yep. Favorite thing about the Iron Man movies, though, lots of AC/DC.
Oh, yes, definitely. Best part about the Iron Man movies is definitely the music.
Especially Highway to Hell. You can't go wrong with Highway to Hell.
No, you can't. Now, next one. Oh, post-credit scene first. Post-credit scene, we see a desert. And zooms in, we see a hammer. Thunder. Goes into our next movie.
Goes into Thor, which is pretty much another origin for Thor. He gets his power taken away and has to earn it back.
Mm-hmm.
And really, Thor feels more recent than it is. But you see, it centers around the common misconception in a lot of Norse mythology that Loki is inherently an evil god and a god of trickery.
Mm-hmm.
Not really true, but we'll go into semantics of that later. Okay, so real quick, Loki was not the god of mischief or trickery. He was the god of cleverness or guile.
Uh-huh.
Which was considered a form of magic back in the day. And if you look in any of the old Nordic legends, Loki never threatens anyone, and really no one has ever asked him for help. They've demanded it from him under threat of violence. Just barged in and said, "I'm going to kick your ass if you don't help me." Which is contrasted in this one by having Loki be very bitter about everything. So he actually takes action in this one in order to gain favor with Odin. I think it's an excellent movie.
Especially the buildup of him actually developing a humanity.
Exactly, yeah, he becomes a little more human. They try to kind of connect the idea of the Bifrost with theoretical physics, like a Rosenberg gate.
Yeah.
And they include the whole Viking knot, or it's more of a Celtic knot that the Bifrost leaves behind.
Post-credit scene.
Post-credit scene, that's right. What was that?
Let me explain it. I remember it.
Yeah, you go ahead.
What happens is you see Eric Selvage, Eric Selvage, the old guy who is the mentor of Jane, everyone in that group, is been hired by SHIELD to look into the Tesseract, which is an item they found, which is introduced in the events of the next movie we will talk about. And you see a projection of Loki reflecting from a mirror, saying, isn't that worth a look?"
And then you've got the Captain America movie, which is just the standard Captain America origin story versus his original villain, the Red Skull. Yeah, I'm a little upset that they didn't play "When Captain America Throws His Mighty Shield."
Well, at least we got the Star-Spangled Man with a plan.
Yeah, that was pretty funny. I love how he actually stole one of the costume helmets to make his own Captain America costume.
Yeah.
For some reason, he had to go into battle as Captain America. Never explained. Never explained.
Yeah, it's kind of weird how a bunch of Nazis didn't realize a American propaganda tool storming into their base with a red, white, and blue shield and a blue helmet with an A on it.
Well, it was actually more of a green fatigue helmet.
Oh, that's true.
That he just wore over his
blue, though. It was light blue.
Yeah, you're right. Or more of like a really dark blue. Let's see. And that kind of leads into him getting frozen, which directly leads into him getting found by S.H.I.E.L.D., which leads into the Avengers. Now, we all know what happens there. We
forgot one part. Because this leads into because this actually leads into part of the phase 2. Bucky,
that's right. The Winter Soldier, but Avengers did come out first.
Yes, but we have to mention what happens to that character.
Yeah, during that time he gets brainwashed.
Well, no. We're doing all right. So Bucky is Captain America's sidekick and best friend during the war. He lost him during the fight on the Hydra train, fell down, and we don't know what happens next. Then we will say what happens afterwards later. Yeah. So yeah, next step is Avengers.
Let's see, Avengers. Well, that's the one that's freshest in our minds, I think. As far as the realization of the Marvel MCU. You've got the whole skirmish with Loki discovering and utilizing utilizing 2 Infinity Stones at the same time without knowing it.
Mm-hmm.
In the Tesseract and his scepter, he summons an army called Chitauri. We actually get to see how the characters really interact with each other as a team for the first time. Hawkeye and Black Widow get introduced. Most of it really is just the majority of the movie is trying to put the idea across that the Avengers was a bad idea to begin with, which is supposed to set the tone for the way the rest of the world feels later.
Right.
And the post-credit scene for that, I believe we had Thanos show up, which started the whole Infinity arc.
Yep.
Then I believe we had Captain America Winter Soldier.
No, Iron Man 3 is next, and I will take this one.
Yeah, because I have not seen it.
Iron Man 3 basically is the idea that a new terrorist comes in, calls himself the Mandarin. Actually, no, I kind of skipped the part. Very beginning, a man named Aldrich Killian pursues Tony Stark with an offer to help him with this program he wanted to do that'll help cure people who have lost their limbs, pretty much. And Tony turns him down, saying he just basically being like a F off, I don't care type attitude. And then this is like in 1999. And then the movie fast forwards to modern day. Tony is coping with nightmares, PTSD that he's had from the events of Avengers, of going into space and all that. New terrorists, the new villain in the line, who's a terrorist called the Mandarin, is basically blowing up different places and doing public announcements throughout the U.S., hacking into their streams and stuff. Threatens the president. Eventually, they target, or Tony makes a public announcement saying, "Come at me," gives him his address and all that, and then the Mandarin sends people to blow up his house. And then he ends up taking a suit and flying off but ends up in Georgia, where he finds this kid who hides him and helps him rebuild his suit, and gets back, goes hunting for the Mandarin, finds out the Mandarin isn't actually real. The Mandarin was actually just an act made to cover up a bigger scheme, and was played by some British actor or hobo who apparently failed in the film industry. So, and actually a one-shot that we will discuss later, right after Thor: The Dark World, explains all that, and you guys will love it. But anyways, turns out he's just a homeless skank, and doesn't care either way. So he lets Tony Stark use his yacht or whatever that he was given along with everything else for playing this role. Goes off, uses it, and then Rhodey is piloting it while Iron Man is going off saving people on this plane that is about to get blown up. Finds out that everything was planned by Aldrich Killian, who was the man that he turned down back then, and he's really been taking soldiers. They're offering soldiers to be part of this program in hopes that they can regrow their limbs, and he's creating super soldiers for the sake of his studies. And so Iron Man stops him and saves the president. Has a big fight because after he's Killian kidnapped the president, and now there's this big fight going on. A bunch of Iron Mans versus Killian and his guys. Iron Man wins. Mandarin or Trevor Slattery, who's the guy who played the Mandarin, went to jail for the sake of government, just for the sake of the public view. Since the public see him as an enemy, even though he wasn't really a criminal, he was just sort of brought into this to play a role. He's living it large in prison. It's like he has his own cell that's like full of like great stuff and all that. Like, he's not really living as a prison mate. He's only in there because the public see him as a bad guy. And so, yeah. And everything's back to normal pretty much. Iron Man gets his arc reactor taken out and has heart surgery. And post-credit scene, it's this one's not really serious. This one's more silly. The post-credit scene it's him telling the story of the movie to Bruce Banner. Bruce Banner falls asleep in the middle of it.
Of course he does. Now that's interesting because in the comics, the Mandarin was a legitimate threat who had a ring on every finger, including his thumb, each giving him a different power.
Right. And we will actually play into that, into the one-shot, which takes place after Thor the Dark World. Now, before we discuss Thor the Dark World, because I assume we're going in full order, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. I can give a brief summary of it without going too far into it. Basically,
yeah, just cover like the main arc and the Ghost Rider arc.
Yeah, but I'll cover that as it comes in order.
Okay, doke.
Right. Basically, season 1 of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., we find out Coulson has been resurrected due to brain surgery that was used with Kree technology, I think. Yeah, Kree technology. And basically he recruits a team, they do stuff together. Then around 2014, S.H.I.E.L.D. is what's the word?
Disbanded?
Disbanded due to turning out that Hydra's been running it the whole time. And one of their agents turns on them. Yep. All right, Thor the Dark World.
Actually, I haven't seen this one either.
Okay. I guess I assume 2013 wasn't your year for Marvel?
No, it really wasn't.
Wait, that was you were in Japan, wasn't it?
2013, Yeah, 2014 was the year I was in Japan.
Okay, then 2013 just wasn't your year.
Yeah.
All right.
Thor I was more concerned with saving to go to Japan. It just.
That's probably why you didn't see it then. All right, Thor the Dark World. Basically, Bifrost is rebuilt, or the Rainbow Road is rebuilt. Then Thor or Loki's in prison. Thor is doing stuff on Asgard. Everything's sort of back to normal. Turns out, and then Dark Elves return, which are like an ancient evil that have threatened the worlds and want to purge the world in pure darkness. The Matrix, which is the red Infinity Stone. I can't remember which stone it is. Do you?
It must be the red Infinity Stone because the purple, blue, and yellow ones are from Guardians of the Galaxy. And the Guardians of the Galaxy, the purple one was the Power Stone. The blue one was the.
Do you remember what the red one was?
Hold on, let me run through these in my head. The yellow one was the Mind Stone, and the blue one was the Space Stone.
I think so. Now, what was the purple one? Or the red one?
Yep. Or because the blue one in the Tesseract opened the hole. I think that was space.
Well, anyways, the Matrix is the red Infinity Stone.
Yeah.
And Jane happened to be in the right place at the right time when she was studying scientific related stuff after the events of Thor, and she ends up bonding with her. And now the Dark Elves can sense where it is, and they're going to Earth for it. So Thor turns behind his father.
Wait, I did see this.
Yeah, Thor turns behind his father's back, kidnaps Loki from prison, and has him help him save Earth from the Dark Elves. And then during one of the fights, Loki presumably dies, and Thor ultimately defeats Malekith and saves the world yet again. And the post-credit scene shows the two of Thor's comrades taking the red Infinity Stone to the Collector Now, next movie is Captain America: The Winter Soldier. And this one I actually think is one of my favorite, especially how relevant it was to the year that it came out. Because remember, 2014, we had issues like the NSA spying on people's tech devices going on, for crying out loud.
And I believe this movie touched on that.
It did, actually. So basic premise was Captain America's working as a S.H.I.E.L.D. agent now. We find out there's this new plan S.H.I.E.L.D. has created called Project Insight, which will have 3 helicarriers surfacing the Earth like satellites, right? And they are able to spy on people's texts, everything, and neutralize a threat before it even happens. Translation: spying on conversations and assuming the worst out of simple words said.
Yeah.
And turns out that S.H.I.E.L.D. wasn't really behind this, that it was Hydra people running within S.H.I.E.L.D. to slowly gain control of the U.S. government.
And and it's kind of funny because Bucky's missing an arm in this movie as well, which kind of shoots back to Iron Man 3, now that I think about it.
But Extremis wasn't involved in this at all.
Yeah, but it's just like it's. Think
and the
about
reason
it.
why Bucky lost his arm was when he was holding on to the rail of the train. It broke as it jerked off, and then when he fell into the snow, it was completely disorganized. So they amputated it.
Think about the similarity in theme, though. The reason for Iron Man 3 was the big bad guy was upset with Tony for refusing to help him come up with a way for people to replace lost limbs.
Yeah.
Bucky is missing a pretty freaking major limb there.
Yeah.
A good chunk of him is gone
and
has been replaced by another group of bad guys. Think about the way this would possibly subconsciously affect Tony, especially since we know that he's prone to post-traumatic stress disorder.
Oh, yes. Yep. And then that actually plays into a later movie that you're talking about it. You know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, okay. I haven't seen it, what you're talking about, but I've got enough info on it that I think I understand it.
Okay. But back to Winter Soldier. So while after S.H.I.E.L.D.'s been compromised, pretty much, and Captain America's on the run, we find he's hunted down by the Winter Soldier, and then they get into a fight, and then he demasks him and finds out it's Bucky. And then Bucky responds, "Who's Bucky?" and vanishes. And then Captain America goes on a hunt trying to find Bucky while escaping the sights of Hydra. Turns out Bucky's been brainwashed by Hydra to be an assassin sent out to kill people that pose threats to Hydra. And we get into our final act of the movie. S.H.I.E.L.D. Or Director Fury takes down Senator Pierce, who's the Hydra leader. And then Captain America fights Bucky. They fall off, and Bucky remembers who he is and saves him, and then leaves. And then end credits, we see Bucky at the Captain America Museum in Smithsonian that was shown earlier in the movie, reading up on who James Buchanan Barnes is.
Yep, and that actually starts leading into Civil War.
Yep. And then the next movie is Guardians of the Galaxy.
Ah, man, that was a good one.
Yep. I knew it would be your movie because you're pretty much Star-Lord.
Am I?
Yes.
Well, I'll take that as a compliment.
Yes. Oh, do you remember that purple light joke he made at the beginning of the movie?
I don't.
It was it was a throwback to like 60s sex parties or whatever, and it was kind of funny. It was like, once I'm done with this room, it'll look as nice as a something in a purple light.
Oh, like black light.
Black light, yeah.
Yeah.
You know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Okay, so Guardians of the Galaxy. Basically, we start off with our main character, Peter Quill, who's just about to see his mother die in front of him due to cancer. Then he's abducted by aliens and raised to be a scavenger by a man named Yondu, who wasn't the best father figure to him. But turns out he was, and that actually plays into the second one. And just due to order of film, I think from here I'm going to go in order of story. So,
okay.
Because Guardians of the Galaxy Part 2 takes place right after Guardians of the Galaxy, so I'm just going to keep them together as one movie.
Right after, or is it like they've had several adventures in between, which would allow for enough time for the other events to happen?
But it takes place within the same year.
Okay.
Yeah, all the events of Guardians of the Galaxy from when it's Peter Quill in space to the ending of Volume 2 takes place within the same year. So it's safe to assume right after, unless you count the animated series that is on Disney XD as canon.
I wouldn't count anything animated as canon.
All right, then yeah, right after. Okay, so basically, Peter Quill ends up in jail for pulling a stunt on Xandar, I think that's the name of the planet, and trying to go for the Infinity Stone, or steal it to sell it, or get it for Yondu so they can sell it, and then.
You need to blow your nose, dude?
I'm fine. It just a little allergies, but I'm good now.
Okay. I know how you feel, by the way. I've been sneezing nonstop.
Yeah. So after that, Peter Quill. All right. I'm sorry. After that, Peter Quill gets arrested alongside Gamera for doing illegal acts on the street. They find out,
which is a shame because Gamera is a friend to all children.
That's funny. Anyways, they both end up in jail. They meet Drax, Rocket Raccoon, and Groot. They escape, go off to find the Infinity Stone, because, well, they live, as Star-Lord puts it, or as Raccoon puts it, why should I save the universe? What has the universe ever done for me? Star-Lord says, because I'm the freaking idiot who lives in this universe. So, they go out, they get the Infinity Stone, stop Ronan, who is the bad guy. We get a scene with Thanos. And then they get the Infinity Stone, return it to Xandar, and then they get a get out of jail free card and go on their adventures.
Which I guess would lead into Volume 2.
Yep, in Volume 2 they are in Volume. Oh, do you want to explain Volume 2?
Yeah, well, Volume 2 basically takes place after one of Groot's roots, a Groot root, grew into baby Groot. Essentially just growing from the same tree.
Mm-hmm.
They've made some very powerful enemies out of a quote-unquote genetically perfect species that seems to flub up a lot.
Right.
They don't even pilot their own vehicles. They're all drones.
Right. Sorry about the background.
Yep, it's cool, dude. Dogs bark. I guess there's a huge issue with who's going to lead the new or the faction of Ravagers that Yondu and Star-Lord belonged to.
Right.
During that whole fiasco, Star-Lord finds out that his father is this super powerful being from beyond known space known as Ego. Now, anyone who read the comics heard that name and said, "Oh no, I'm sorry, Star-Lord." But what Ego is essentially a sentient planet. He takes Star-Lord there, explains his history there and how he fell in love and had many children and tried
love sarcastically.
Yeah. Spread his genetic essence all over the universe in 2 forms in hopes that one day he could conquer it by assimilating it.
You can take that so wrong in so many levels, though.
Please do take that out of context, Internet.
Alright. Simple version. What's the actor's name who plays him? Do you remember the name of the guy who plays Ego?
He played the dude.
No, well, he didn't play. No, that's not Jeff Bridges. Oh, 1 second. Because I have a really
no,
good
not Jeff Bridges. Why does he remind me of the dude? I can't tell.
Okay. Oh, it's Kurt Russell.
Kurt Russell.
So
that's
basically,
right.
Kurt Russell traveled around space, spewing his cum everywhere, and things happened.
Dude. Universe, YouTube laws.
God dang it! Sorry.
Essentially, well, what I meant by genetic material is essentially that those flowers he was planting.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I just had to make that bad joke. It was funny.
And he tried to have children so that he would have someone who would generate power with him to activate this grand journey.
Yeah, basically he felt alone and needed someone to relate to.
That as well.
Yeah.
But mainly because he needed someone else to help him.
Yeah. Reshape the universe, right? In his image or something?
Essentially assimilated so it's all Ego.
Yeah.
Obviously this doesn't work. Rocket gets Yondu's help. They retake the Ravager ship and go and help him, along with Gamora's sister.
Uh-huh.
Well, his poor Walkman got squished.
Yep.
So they got him a Zune. Yondu dies.
And he got pissed.
Uh-huh. What was the post-credit scene to that one?
There were 5, actually.
Really?
Yes. First one was sort of a reference to what was it? It was a reference to either The Expendables or some other Sylvester Stallone movie, because you had Stallone and a crew of people that he's been cast members with in a previous film.
Oh yeah, and they played the other Ravager factions.
Yeah. And then you had a post-credit scene that introduced Adam Warlock, or that teased him. Then you had one with Stan Lee on a as an astronaut in space, talking with the Watchers.
Yeah. Oh, I love the fact that they gave him a friggin' Zune.
Hey, what?
A Zune. It was Microsoft's competitor to the iPod when it came out.
Oh, yeah.
Now, just watch Microsoft re-release the Zune just because of this movie.
Uh-huh.
And watch it sell like hotcakes because, god damn it, people will buy a brand they recognize.
Yep. All right, next movie is Avengers: Age of Ultron.
Yes, Age of Ultron. You covered this one just because it covers a theme that I have a personal dislike for, not for any reasonable reason. Just it's Yeah, you go ahead.
Let me guess, Terminator theme?
No. I'll tell you about it later.
Okay. All right. So basic gist of Avengers Age of Ultron. Tony Stark is really paranoid at this point with the fear of another alien invasion. Like super paranoid. So what is his thought? Create an army of robots to become Earth's defense against alien threats.
Yeah.
And what else does he decide to do? Create an AI to control these robots so he doesn't have to deal with it.
Yes, essentially his PTSD drove him to the extreme conclusion.
Yep.
Because let's face it, this is just left over from the experience he had. He was still wigging out.
Uh-huh.
You don't get over it. You don't, people.
And then Tony created Ultron. Ultron pretty much pulls a Skynet.
Here's the thing, though. He didn't create Ultron.
Oh, that's right.
He
Ultron
modeled...
was actually created by Hydra, wasn't it?
No. The Scepter, the Mind Stone in the Scepter, had a similar thing going on to Jarvis.
Right.
And Tony just modeled the control, I believe the system for everything after the brain that he found in that stone.
Yep. And didn't Ultron, the brain from the stone, corrupt Jarvis or something, and Jarvis became Ultron essentially?
No. He attacked Jarvis. He didn't assimilate him.
Okay. So Jarvis was pretty much weakened.
Yes, but Tony fixed him.
Yeah, and he became Vision. Right?
Yes, he did become... Well, Vision has elements of Jarvis in him. But
like
he's not exactly... Yeah, but he's not exactly Jarvis. He is...
Does he have the memories of Jarvis, though?
He understands what Jarvis was.
Okay.
But essentially, he is Ultron done right.
Okay. Right. So then they all end up fighting Ultron in Sokovia. Quicksilver dies. Oh, that's what I forgot to mention. The twins were Quicksilver and Scarlet Witch worked for Ultron for a bit because they wanted to kill Stark for the revenge of their family's death. They eventually find out the truth about Ultron and then turn against him, joining the Avengers. And then some people die. Sokovia gets launched off into the sky, breaks back down. Avengers win. And then post-credits scene, Thanos grabs the Infinity Gauntlet.
And that launches us straight into Thor Ragnarok?
No, well, Ant-Man is next.
Ant-Man. Yes, Ant-Man. Now, Ant-Man didn't really have much going on for the Infinity Stones. As a matter of fact, I don't think really it ties... Well, it's part of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, that we know.
Yeah.
But it's not good. Its story isn't going to tie into the Avengers story yet. Anyway.
Right. Basically, Scott Lang is a thief.
They might show up in Infinity War.
Yeah. Basically, Scott Lang is a thief. He gets intel that there's something cool in this one mansion. They go in and steal it. Turns out to be an Ant-Man suit. Though he leaves it there, if I remember correctly, he left it there and then gets arrested. And then he gets bailed out by Hank Pym, who offers him a chance to have a better life. In reality, he just wants him to steal some shit. And then, so helps him break back into his company. And turns out that his new CEO, who is Yellow Jacket, was selling stuff to Hydra, pretty much.
Yep, and so he used the Ant-Man suit to defeat Yellow Jacket. We see the plans for the new Wasp costume show up. And that ends there pretty much, and then it's Thor Ragnarok, right?
No, after
no. Thor Ragnarok is the most recent one. Ant-Man is, pardon?
Civil War is next.
Yeah, Civil War. Then I believe
it's Civil War, Doctor Strange.
Civil War, Doctor Strange, Black Panther. Then
no, Civil War, Doctor Strange, and then it's next in order would have to be Spider-Man: Homecoming.
Well, except that's technically owned by Sony.
No, it's Marvel. It's still MCU. It's in the MCU. Sony only has their names on it because they own the rights to They own partial rights to Spider-Man.
Okay, I thought they were gonna separate it from the MCU.
Nope.
Okay, yeah. So
Civil War.
Spider-Man.
So yeah.
Civil War. Pretty.
We're gonna do a very brief condensed so that way we can actually get to where we are because this is long as is. All right. So Civil War, basically, government says all superheroes have to reveal their identity to the public. Some disagree. Captain America still doesn't agree with the government because in fear of Hydra, influences of Hydra still running the U.S. government. So he disagrees. Goes rogue. They fight. Both sides lose. Avengers disbanded.
Then Cap's team goes to Wakanda.
Yep.
And that goes into the whole Black Panther thing.
Yep. Next movie is Doctor Strange. Basic.
Now this is where another Infinity Stone is revealed. The Time Stone, the green one.
But yeah, basically, self-righteous narcissistic doctor loses control of his hands, and after that goes on a more of a spiritual journey to heal himself, and ends up becoming the Sorcerer Supreme.
Yes. Now he uses a medallion called the Eye of Agamotto, which actually has the Time Stone in it.
Yes.
You know, I've come to bargain. Now, it's interesting because they talk about the dark dimension now, and they talk about how time doesn't exist there. This is a very important thing to understand about extra-dimensional physics. So, no dimension is a point, right?
Right.
But if you extrude that point from itself, you get a single dimension. You get a line. Extrude that line from itself, and you get a two-dimensional square. Extrude that square from itself, and you get a cube. You have created. So first you had to create length, then you had to create width, then you had to create depth. Now, here's where it gets trickier. The fourth dimension is time. It is time traveling forward. So if we were able to see our four-dimensional selves, we would see ourselves as we exist throughout all of time.
Oh, dang.
We would see ourselves we would look like this long snake-like thing crossing through other long snake-like things.
Yeah.
Now, the fifth dimension is all possible futures.
Mm-hmm.
And the sixth dimension is where it starts to get kind of tricky. And I think the dark dimension is supposed to be the sixth dimension and up, where time, as we experience it, becomes less and less relevant.
Okay. I'm with you.
Or, and this doesn't make sense, but mathematically, it's all I could think of. It could be a lower dimension, like the second dimension, or possibly even the first dimension, before time begins to affect it.
Okay.
Now, the problem with that is that we're able to see what is supposed to be a representation of an extra-dimensional image. If it were the second dimension, all we would see is just a line segment down the center of the screen, and if it were first-dimensional, all we would see is a point, because you can only view the lower dimension from the dimension you're in.
Correct.
So, to Dormammu, Doctor Strange probably looked like a really lazy cartoon character.
That's actually, well, that's actually not surprising considering the whole movie was a drug trip.
Yes, and they talk. Look, and the reason I say it's probably higher dimensions is when they fold space, you see third-dimensional objects fold into each other and overlap, like a tesseract. So let me break something down for you here. Another way to look at dimensions is as such. The number sequence 2 would be 1, 1, infinity, 5, 6, 3, 3, 3, 3, 3. What I mean here is, okay, how many of a single dimension you need to make the next dimension? So if you take 4 squares and fold them together, you get half of a cube, which you meet with the other half. Now, what happens when you take 3 cubes and fold them along the 4th dimensional axis? You get half a tesseract.
All right.
Which was another big thing in this movie. I think they were hinting at Doctor Strange from all the way back since they hinted at the tesseract.
I think this is not the right time to talk about extreme physics. I'm sorry.
Anyway, what I'm saying here is it's just a bit of a theory, but they keep bringing up the idea of extra dimensions.
Right.
Which plays into the Infinity Gauntlet, because there is a space stone, a time stone, there's a mind stone, there is a power stone, there is a soul stone, and a reality stone.
Mm-hmm.
Essentially, the Infinity Gauntlet is the ultimate remote control for the this third-dimensional universe. And that's probably the reason why it doesn't work in other universes, because it's tuned in to this particular this universe, this frequency of the third dimension.
Okay.
Now, anyway, I've rambled on long enough about extra dimensional
I'm
physics.
lost. I'm sorry.
Hopefully that was helpful to someone. I probably lost several of you there. So after Doctor Strange, I believe is it Black Panther or Spider-Man Homecoming?
After Doctor Strange, it's Spider-Man Homecoming.
Spider-Man Homecoming. Now, this is kind of fun, because you mentioned that I remind you of Star-Lord. You remind me of Peter in Spider-Man Homecoming.
Oh, really? Do continue. Hides my Spider-Man costume over there somewhere.
It's a much more realistic look at the experience of a high school student, I believe.
Yes, especially the nerdy high school student.
Yes, with the obsession with Legos. By the way, this what you're hearing right now?
Oh, you have those too?
I have 3 gigantic drawers full of Legos.
I have a few buckets.
Most of it is Bionicle, but
underneath these are Legos also.
Yeah, most of it is Bionicle. I still use them sometimes, believe it or not. Just when I'm having Oh, that's all Legos.
Yep.
Dude, we got to do a video just on our memories with Legos sometime.
Definitely.
Bionicle, if you're game.
Yep.
Anyway, so, he's a real nerdy kid. He's obsessed with, hobbies like Lego and video games and
There's a bunch of Star Wars stuff in his background.
Oh, yeah, lots of Star Wars. He's a computer whiz. Well, his friend, and so is his friend.
Mm-hmm.
Given a brand new suit by Tony Stark, it's essentially an Iron Man suit on board AI and everything. He hacks it so that he can access all the cool gadgets. He looks up to Tony as sort of a father figure.
Mm-hmm.
And he's just constantly giving Tony updates that I'm sure Tony appreciates, but are probably wearing down on the guy he has to give them to.
Oh yes, Happy. Happy puts up with a lot of shit.
Yeah, and weirdly, Peter, like the way he talks, resembles your mode of speech a lot.
Explain.
If you ask me. Like, helped an old lady cross the street. She bought me a churro. Probably shouldn't have said that. Damn
it. Yeah.
He's just like, he's nothing against you, dude, but it's like the way he talks, he second guesses himself a lot. Especially when...
Well, I definitely do relate to Peter Parker, because I have Asperger's syndrome. If you know what that is.
Well, I have Asperger's as well.
Mm-hmm.
That's why I kind of liked Spider-Man Homecoming, is I kind of related to Peter a little bit.
Amen. I think I'm curious if he was actually intentionally portrayed that way, or if just Tom Holland is that way.
It's the weird thing, because they don't come right out and say it, but I think they're trying to imply it. The sort of the invisible end of the autism spectrum.
Yeah. I feel like Spider-Man's always been portrayed that way, in the comics at least, though.
Well, it just the thing about it is autism has always been around, and we're only just recently figuring out as much as we know about it.
Mm-hmm.
Like, we know now that it's caused through its genetic thing.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, Happy Autism Awareness Month, by the way.
Happy Autism Awareness Month, dude.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it's actually, this is a good topic to talk about, the invisible end of the autism spectrum, especially in the context of Spider-Man.
Mm-hmm.
He latches on to this figure of security, this admirable figure that he admires, or redundant admirable figure that he admires. But it's what he is, at least in Peter's eyes. And
well, I'm gonna get my charger. My computer's about to die.
Yep. Feels really upset when Tony has to take the Spider-Man suit away from him for hacking it. And so he has to face a struggle in which he has to figure out how to be a hero on his own.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, they reference the same goddamn thing they reference. Okay, so Spider-Man lifted something heavy off him in a very famous comic. Okay, we get it. Stop using it. Stop.
Wasn't that used
I said stop. No more lifting heavy shit.
Wasn't that, let's see, they did it in Spider-Man 2.
It's a reference to one of the original comics.
Okay. That's why it's done so much. Okay, that makes sense now.
The problem with it is that it's overused. It's like, if you're not going to recreate that scene exactly, then it's been played out. You don't need to use it anymore.
Right.
At this point, they're just throwing it in because it's a tradition. And I think that's something
let's talk about how Vulture was portrayed.
Yes, see, that's the interesting part, is the Vulture and the Shocker, a couple of Spider-Man exclusive villains. We don't see them a lot outside of Spider-Man.
Uh-huh.
Essentially using Chitauri technology. And this was the weird part to me. Because, like, in the comics, the Vulture created a sort of an Icarus suit.
And
the Shocker just wore an insulated suit that fired electricity. In this one, the Vulture is, in fact, wearing, like, a full-on bomber jacket and the helmet and everything.
Yeah. And he was just like a blue-collar worker who unfortunately got let go by the U.S. government.
He got screwed over.
Yeah.
And I think part of that is like the blue collar worker is not as respected as they should be.
Right.
And I think it's because people tend to assume that because it's more physical labor, that the people working that gig aren't intelligent.
Okay.
Because there's this whole obsession in the human brain with opposites. You know, it's like white collar must be the opposite of blue collar because they're two forms of work.
Yeah.
It's not how it works out.
White collar is usually intellectual, right?
White collar is like the computerized, the office work, the that kind of stuff.
Right.
The desk jobs. So, anyway. Disgruntled blue-collar worker decides, you know what, I'm going rogue, and I'm going to sell a bunch of this shit. We're going to make our own weapons out of it. So they become arms dealers. And they start dealing some really... Okay. Shit that no one, I don't care if you're a goddamn top military secret agent, should not have this technology. Okay, this kind of stuff would frighten the Avengers. Okay, this is not something that should exist.
Right.
Spider-Man takes it upon himself to try to stop him. Peter takes his suit away, so Spidey uses his homemade suit. Funny shit ensues, and he saves the day.
It's so bad, they thought they had a little gem. They actually had a bomb.
Yeah, that's...
It blew up the Washington Monument.
Don't assume anything with alien technology.
Yeah, basically, Spider-Man fights him, finds out that he's actually dating the Vulture's daughter. Some things happen, they fight. The Vulture goes to prison and knows his identity, but decides not to rat him out because he's found the errors of his ways, pretty much.
Exactly.
And Spider-Man's offered a role in the Avengers, but turns it down.
Because he wants to just be the friendly neighborhood Spider-Man.
Yes, and then at the end...
Which totally kind of... It put Tony in a hot spot, right?
Yeah.
Because he was expecting this whole press conference. And he didn't have the heart to tell the kid.
Yeah. And so, now, at the ending, Aunt May finds out he's Spider-Man.
And then after that, we get into Black Panther, which I have not seen, but because my friends talk about it constantly, I think I've got a good working understanding of it.
Okay.
So, but you go ahead, and I'll just chime in, because there are probably some very large gaps in what I know.
Well, you just tell me off on what's missing. So you have a turn.
So, at Wakanda, they go back with Black Panther, who is now the king of Wakanda, and Wakanda is the only source of vibranium on Earth. They cure Bucky of his brainwashing, give everyone who followed...
Thor Ragnarok.
Pardon?
We missed Thor Ragnarok.
Oh, did Thor Ragnarok come out before Black Panther?
Yes.
Oh, well, then let's just jump into Thor Ragnarok.
Yeah.
Essentially, Ragnarok is starting, but again, not in the way the Nordic texts are supposed to go. Odin dies because of betrayal of Loki, etc., etc. Hela, whose name is actually supposed to be Hel, rises up from Hell to... It's essentially like Hades. The realm is named after him.
Yeah.
After her.
Takes over Asgard. Thor gets... and Loki get tossed into another realm.
And then Thor's hammer gets smashed. Okay, so this is one thing that Marvel got right. In Norse mythology, the gods are not these all-powerful immortal beings. They are just very powerful, long-living beings. They live long, but they can be killed.
Right.
Now, in the comics, Odin gives Thor the hammer, which is not how it happened in the actual legend, but anyway, it's supposed to be made within the heart of a dying star. It's this really dense metal, and Hela just crushes it like glass.
Yep.
So he gets launched through the Bifrost, he gets lost, and ends up essentially at a planet between all open gateways.
Yeah. I mean, here's the funny part, though. The Grandmaster.
Yep. Friggin' Jeff Goldblum.
And just how he addresses everything. Like he hates the word prisoners. He says the what was he called them again? The
competitors, the athletes, or
the guests.
Champions? Oh yeah, the guests.
The guests, and he had like a really nice and
he was essentially putting a positive spin on gladiatorial combat by saying that they would be loved.
Yes. And so yeah, basically, I want to focus a little bit on the character of the Grandmaster, because I think that was one of the highlights of the movie. So the Grandmaster is basically the self-righteous narcissist who likes to twist everything into a positive manner because he doesn't want to deal with the negative facts of what he's actually doing.
More or less, yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, basically, Thor is reunited with Hulk. They escape. They go back to Asgard, fight defeat Hela. Thor loses an eye, and he finds out that the power of lightning did not come from Mjolnir, but only helped him harness his lightning power. And then the rest of Asgard gets saved on a ship, and they go off, and Asgard gets destroyed by the giant demon thing. And then, ending there. Post-credits scene, they encounter Thanos' ship, and the final post-credits scene, the Grandmaster gets out of a pod and ends up in front of a bunch of rebels, where he says, all right, guys, I'm so proud of you for just this absolute revolution. This revolution's been a huge success, and for both sides. Yay us. So it's a tie.
Yeah.
I'm curious what actually happens to him after that scene.
Probably nothing good. And then that leads into Black Panther. I know that Bucky gets his brainwashing cured. All of Cap's team gets a bunch of fancy new vibranium upgrades.
Basically, this takes a modern turn connecting to the riots of the 1992, if you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, so I believe that was what Lovin' Is What I Got was written about, right?
Well, the character of Killmonger is the son of a Wakandan warrior who helped within the riots that were happening in 92.
Okie doke.
Essentially. And T'Challa's father killed his brother because he tried killing one of his soldiers. So they kept it undercover, and Killmonger grew up alone, pretty much, and he's been plotting the takeover of Wakanda since. Basically, he gets Ulysses Claw to help him, ends up killing him, and then sending his body to the throne and revealing himself to be the cousin of T'Challa, challenges him for the throne, takes the throne. T'Challa comes back to life thanks to an opposing tribe who helped bring him back to life. And then they go back, they fight Killmonger. Killmonger is stabbed and offered the chance to live, but he refuses by saying, Nah, I'll rather die because my ancestors knew before me that death was better than bondage. And so he dies. T'Challa decides to open up Wakanda to the rest of the, or have outreaches to the rest of the world and reveal themselves. The movie did take a really, like, it kind of did what Winter Soldier did, where like connecting real life events to the film, except this went to a more deeper political stance on current events, and I think for the better, honestly. I mean, I don't want to go deep into that because that's just politics, but
I would have to like watch it for myself before I formed a really solid opinion on it.
Right.
But
it really did capture a lot of issues, though.
And I think, and that's great. I think the Marvel movie universe is doing it better than the comics right now. But
yeah,
it's great that they're trying to make themselves aware.
Mm. And then the next movie, which is all the hype for, is Infinity War.
Yeah.
Due to time, I think we will discuss Infinity War in the first week of May.
Sounds good to me.
Yes. So yeah, thank you all for joining us for this recap of Marvel. Come back to us on the first week of May, where we will discuss Infinity War and everything that connects to it.
Thank you, everyone, for watching. I hope you have a great rest of your weekend, Weekend Warriors.
Stay more phenomenal, everybody.